Hey, I'm Jamie with Guitarist.
And I'm Richard.
So today, as you probably clocked, we've got quite a cool guitar here by Epiphone, inspired by Gibson Custom, which is based on a very famous Les Paul, which was Jeff Beck's Oxblood 1954 Les Paul. We've got it in today firstly to see if it does justice to the great man himself and his memory, but we think there's another reason why, if you're thinking of buying a Les Paul, you should check this guitar out whether you like Jeff Beck or not. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so before we get started on this particular guitar, its pros and cons, let's talk about the backstory of the original, because it is quite a tangled story, and this all kind of came to the public eye fairly recently when Christie's auctioned the original, and it went for a sort of near record $1.3 million, I believe, at the time. Yeah. And considering how hacked about the original was, that's a testament to Jeff Beck's genius and the power of his playing to still inspire, people's passions. So here's my little potted summary of the sort of best people can figure out about Oxblood. So Jeff Beck was visiting Memphis. He was playing Yardburst at the time, which was itself quite a sort of Bitzer type Les Paul. And this particular guitar, he went to Memphis, looked in a store called Strings and Things, looking for guitars there, didn't find anything he wanted. Then he went for a drive with a fan of his called Buddy Davis, who took him around various automobile parts shops, because Jeff Beck was into hot rods. They were driving around just looking at hot rod cars and things like that. And in the back of the car, there happened to be a Les Paul with a distinctive reddy brown finish. Mm-hmm. Two exposed humbuckers, double blacks, and this stop bar tailpiece here. So the story goes, as far as Christie's were able to untangle it before the auction, was that Buddy Davis himself had the guitar on approval from Strings and Things, where it had come in from a previous owner who had taken it in originally to be converted from a 1954 Les Paul Goldtop with the two P90s that are appropriate for that time. Mm-hmm. He'd asked for it to be fitted with humbuckers, which it duly was, and to be refinished in a finish that was the same colour as his shoes, which must have been a pretty boring pair of boots by the look of it.
I've got to say, yeah, just get gold shoes.
Just get gold shoes. So anyway, when the original owner got it back, he didn't actually like the change that had been made, in common with a lot of people who've modded their guitars. And Buddy Davis, the Jeff Beck fan who was driving Jeff around, had decided that he did like it. He hadn't yet paid for it, so the story goes. But Jeff took an instant fancy to it, and long story short, he ended up buying the guitar from Strings and Things. The guitar, it's photographed with Jeff. There's pictures of him using it with BBA in '72. It's the power trio, Beck, Bogut and Appice. And really, it sort of follows on, as mentioned, from the Yardburst Les Pauls.
Because you said it was a Bitzer Les Paul. It quite literally was in bits at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it needed a Les Paul to tour with because that was in for repair.
Absolutely.
Again.
So this is where this comes in, and of course it's on the cover of Blow by Blow, even though it didn't actually get used very much on Blow by Blow. The Telegib and a Strat were used more often.
Yeah, he was kind of by then making the transition in the studio, at least, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. But it remains a very iconic guitar for any Jeff Beck fan, and indeed any rock fan. And it's just a cool thing, isn't it?
I just think it's a very appealing, in the same way that a Les Paul Junior is appealing. There's a sort of stripped downness about it. Yeah. I've been very impressed with how this intonates, actually. I guess we'll get into that a bit later, but I just think it's a really cracking guitar.
So shall we have a little look at the features and run through those?
Right. Well, we've got the sort of features that you would expect from any vintage Les Paul: mahogany neck, one piece, though it wasn't the original neck on the Yardburst.
That's right. Well, this is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because Oxblood had its neck changed out for a slimmer one. I think that's correct. But so this one is unusual in that it's got quite a fat neck profile, which you have to assume is them trying to do Epiphone, trying to sort of do justice to what the 54 might have been like, because it isn't at all slim, this one. It's actually quite chunky.
No, it's got a real depth to it. Though it's very playable. I mean, I've got quite long fingers anyway, but it's very comfortable. It doesn't feel like a massive, great baseball bat, but I do recognise that it is a thick neck.
Yeah, so I mean, the other thing that obviously marks it out as being different from the original 54, apart from the finish, is the fact it's got humbuckers, these double blacks. Now, Christie's had said that they thought that the pickups on the original, as it went for sale, were patent number pickups. So that's the version of the humbucker that transitioned to after PAFs.
After the PAFs, because they had applied for the patent and received it.
So they're quite hot, these ones. These are actually Custombucker A3 Custombuckers, which pickups that we really like.
Yeah, they're using them a lot at the moment, and they're a great pickup. You can see exactly why.
Yeah. Quite hottish though, aren't they? Or hottish?
Yeah, approaching 8K, 7.91 or something like that. This particular pair are pretty much exactly the same, apparently. But that also reflects the practice where a pickup was a pickup, really. You didn't have the calibrated sets, did you? Not on Strats or on Les Pauls. You just got what you got, and they were usually wound within a fairly tight tolerance, between 7 and 8K, really.
Yeah.
And these are closer to 8, so they've got that little bit. They've still got the clarity, but there's a little bit more roundness at the top end. Of course, the A3 magnets will contribute to that as well. I think that's a great compromise.
So tell us a little bit more about the electronics, because these Epiphone inspired by Gibson custom guitars tend to be sort of tricked out with USA components or higher spec components.
Well, indeed it is, actually, yeah. As well as those pickups, of course, we've got the Switchcraft switches and jack. We've got CTS 500K pots. It's got Mallory capacitors. Now, apparently, the original would have had those changed because it would have been bumblebees or something like that.
Yes, that's right. I think as the guitar was presented to auction, it didn't have the original wiring had been messed around with quite a lot, so the caps and so forth were different from what you'd expect in the 54.
Yeah, in fact, I may be wrong about the bumblebees. So, if anybody does know, then perhaps drop it in the comments for subsequent viewers.
I mean, and also, we're mentioning here that, this is something Epiphone have done with some of the Joe Bonamassa guitars and things like that. I mean, do you think anybody who owns the guitars that have come so far in that line of replica guitars, anybody have any comments you want to say about them? Do you think the Epiphone are hitting the mark with these? We'd love to hear what you say in the comments.
Yeah. Anyone who's played one. I mean, certainly they seem to be hitting a pretty good mark with this. I mean, we've got a lot of the features are very true to the original. I wasn't sure what they meant about the tuners, because we've got these Schaller type buttons.
Yes.
But these are actually on Grover Rotomatics, and I would have assumed that there was Schaller M6 on there, which was such a common replacement. And Gibson started using them, didn't they, in the 70s as well?
They did indeed, and on the original it was Schaller M6s. This is Epiphone giving the appearance of Oxblood as was, although the actual mechanism is a Grover one, which is a little bit different from the original, but you wouldn't tell by looking at it. And
it's a good tuner anyway.
Well, we've also got some nice little details here, like the speed knobs, which are consistent with the sort of earlier 50s.
Yeah, they may be on the original. They may be the original knobs. And we've got what is affectionately called the thumb bleeders, the pointers there. Though these are quite rounded actually, so you're not going to cut yourself on there.
Yeah.
Which are, again, probably an original feature.
Should we hear some more sounds? We've already heard you play a little bit on it. Should we hear some sounds off the pickups?
Yeah, I've got, we're plugged into the studio's JTM45 Mark II reissue. I've opted to use a Boss Blues driver just to give it a little bit more, because cranking that thing up, we wouldn't make it out of here with our hearing. So here we have the bridge. And it's 50s wired, so as I bring it down, so you can control the gain basically without losing a load of tone. Now, what was I knocking around with earlier? I was trying to play weird Jeff Beck type things, though I think that's a bit of a rabbit hole I need to be careful of. So, yeah, please forgive. I mean, that's really nice the way that's set. It's quite a bit further back than you would find on a regular Les Paul.
Well, actually, on the original, one thing that was pointed out by Kerry Keane, who's Christie's sort of guitar expert, that's was involved in the sale. The pickup surround was actually fouled the stop bar on the original. You couldn't actually sort of get it out very easily. So whoever did the mod originally at Strings and Things hadn't been, they'd obviously either couldn't put it further forward or didn't quite get it right.
Yeah, because it seems to me if you're going to route out a hole for a humbucker based on a P90 hole, you've got, I suppose, unless you go bang in the middle and just widen it each side, then you might go for one edge or the other and then just kind of carve out the rest of the hole. And I think that maybe they should have chosen the other side, though that would have sounded different. And this does seem to suit this guitar very well. I mean, a matter of interest, I'm usually not a fan of them too close to the bridge.
No.
Because I know the old juniors, they actually ended up moving them, didn't they?
That's right, yeah. I think that was a structural thing because it was a bit, the wood, the wall of wood between pickup and post was too narrow for security.
Weak. I mean, these are satin inserts, so we're not going to get that here. But that's quite interesting. And the neck pickup is really full sounding. So we've got...
we were saying earlier on, though, that actually one thing that's a bit of a turn-off for me, and I know you sort of expressed a similar view, was that when you have humbuckers that aren't great, on the neck they can sound just like a sine wave, no detail at all.
Real.
I don't think that's the case here. They do sound, pretty nice and got a bit of detail to them.
Yeah, and I find that sort of syndrome tends to happen a lot higher up. Yeah, so we're not getting any of that. Yeah, that sounds like a proper neck pickup.
The Custombuckers have popped up on some of the other, Epiphone inspired by Gibson custom guitars. I think on the Jimi Hendrix V that came up, and I like them then. Actually, they're a really, it's personal taste. These things are all subjective, but I do think they're a good sort of Goldilocks option. Then they're a little bit spicier than low wound.
Yeah. I mean, some people love that, don't they? Because you get the extra crispness from it and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that. It's not my personal preference, but these are a really good middle ground. And I think that doing the usual tricks about raising or lowering or maybe raising the pole pieces, you could probably trim the sound a bit. They're a really good middle ground. Yeah.
So should we hear? Can we hear it in the middle again? Because that's such a useful position.
Well,
we
I
can also
haven't
mess with
done that, actually,
the relative levels.
Let's kick the blues driver off and just see, because that can tend to homogenise things, can't it? I can hear the snap and the twang you get from the middle.
And I think that's really what personally I want from a Les Paul. I think there was a time in the 90s where they were really strident. They were all mid-range. They were not a bit of a blunt instrument, weren't they?
Really high output pickups on there, which again, might be the right thing for some people, but it does seem a little bit specialist, especially these days when there are so many outboard things and amps have got gain for days. Then maybe it's kind of nice to have a guitar somewhere a bit more in the middle.
So I think, so we mentioned earlier on that, obviously this is a godsend for anyone who loves Jeff Beck, even more so if you happen to play in a Jeff Beck tribute band. This guitar costs £1,199. So
in its case.
And it's got a case, it's got a little bit of case candy, it's got a strap that echoes Jeff's one.
Oh, yeah.
So if you are a Jeff Beck fan, this is probably the most accessible chance you'll get to have an Oxblood, because they did one back in 2009 from the custom shop.
They do about 100 of them or something?
Yeah, they did 100. And obviously that was a really high-end instrument. You'd be hard-pressed to find one, and even then it's going to be big bucks. So this, for 1,200 quid effectively, I know some people will say, oh, but it's an Epiphone. I mean, it is an Epiphone, but it's got US parts where it counts.
I mean, we've talked about it before, and I just think that it's got the look.
It's got the open book headstock, just shaped like a real Gibson. So far so good.
Too. I like the feel of the finish. The way that they've done that. I mean, if it were mine, I wouldn't polish it.
No.
And I'd just let it wear naturally.
Yeah. Because this is although it's not a sort of custom shop nitro finish, it is knocked back a bit so it doesn't feel like a box fresh pair of trainers. It's not super shiny, which again feels quite tactile and nice. And I think that leads us on to what we were saying is the other reason you might want to consider this guitar is actually not, if you're not even a Jeff Beck fan, I think this has got a really nice feature set on it, as just in and of itself as a all-round workhorse Les Paul.
You want a good Les Paul, absolutely.
I think it's a really good shape.
I mean, a lot of people say that a lot of a guitar's tone comes from the neck, and I couldn't say definitively. In fact, that'd be another thing that I'd be very interested to hear people's views on. But in my experience, most big necked guitars that I've had have sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
And this has got that.
Yeah.
And we've got the proper woods. Maybe this bridge would put some people off, but I'd like to dispel that a bit. I mean, on this guitar, certainly. And I'd like to demonstrate the unplugged tone as well, of course, going on from the neck.
Nice and loud.
I mean, I really like what I'm hearing there, and I'm not hitting it too hard there. And it feels good. I can feel the transmission through the body. But intonation, I'll put a little bit of volume on for this. That's not bad. I mean, there is facility for coarse adjustment. I haven't been drinking, at least I don't remember, with the grub screw here. So you can trim that low end a bit with the intonation, but it's not bad.
It's not screaming for it, is it? I think, and the other thing I like about this particular one is some of the Epiphone Les Pauls we've tried, really nicely turned out. But one or two of them have been quite on the heavier side. That's not necessarily a reason not to buy it, but this is actually a really nice weight. So I think that's again also, even though there's some intonation compromises potentially with those bridges, I quite like the fact it hasn't got the extra ironmongery there. It's a bit more tactile.
It feels nice actually. Yeah. I've found that palm muting on it feels really good. Yeah. It feels different from a Tune-o-matic. So, I mean, obviously a Tune-o-matic is a great thing, but I am finding on this guitar that I'm not really missing it.
Yeah. So I think that's the other conclusion really that we want to make, is that actually if you want a really tactile, nice weight, on the evidence of this one at least, one with a good feature set, it's 1,200 quid. Yeah, it's an Epiphone, but
solid as a rock as well. I mean, you could row from Oxford to Cambridge using that neck. Yeah. If there were a river that went from Oxford to Cambridge. It sounds like a good Les Paul to me. Yeah. We haven't had to mess around with it, Obviously, it's one of those things where sometimes a guitar will come out of the box, and we play a lot of them in here, don't we? And you sort of think, well, let's get a nice sound with it. And sometimes, you do feel like you have to work a bit harder, whereas this...
Yeah, and so it doesn't sound, like we're blowing sunshine. Genuinely, both Gibsons and Epiphones, we've played ones that have been not quite as inspiring as this. So really, I think that's the point is, if you're actually in the market for a really nice, vibey Les Paul, you don't have to be a Jeff Beck fan to go and check this out. I think it's got a lot to going for it, even without that.
Yeah, I'd say it's well worth a look.
Great, so thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe. Tell us what you think about this guitar. Tell us whether you think the Epiphones are well priced or overpriced in the comments, and we'll look forward to hearing what you've got to say. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and see you next time.